Hello, and welcome to the Boneyard with Terry Wayne George. This is an audiocast whose purpose is to enlighten and awaken all of those who are lovers of liberty and freedom. In episode 1, I spoke briefly on the First Amendment, and plan to do so again in a future episode. But in the second episode, I'm going to push forward with our Bill of Rights and speak to the issue of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is stated as follows: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. For a long while now, we've had people that have argued and tried ceaselessly to take this right away. They'll tell you things like, guns are too easy for people to get, or there is entirely too much gun crime, or less guns equal less crime, or guns should only be used for hunting. A well-regulated militia does not sound like this amendment says anything about the right to bear arms for the purposes of hunting. Or they will tell you that the framers of the Constitution had no idea that there were going to be assault rifles. It's not about technology of the arms, it's about equality of being able to actually maintain the security of the said free state. If those that would take freedoms away are using assault rifles to do so, well, it only stands to reason that the people should have the same weapons to defend against this. If they succeed in infringing further on the people's right to bear arms, then the only people who will have these weapons are the authorities and the criminals. Criminals will obviously benefit from any gun restrictions that are put into place, as they're obtaining their weapons illegally in most cases as it is, and will continue to do so regardless of any sort of gun laws that are put into place. As for the authorities, well, persons in a position of authority, kings and queens, police, military, politicians, and others, got to the position of authority by one of four ways. 1. They fought others to gain a position of authority. 2. They were born into a position of authority. 3. They were voted into a position of authority. Or 4. They simply chose to be in a position of authority. In my personal opinion, not one of these reasons stated gives anybody the right to hold dominion over me. Plus the fact that we already see that our federal government will give away guns to criminals. Fast and Furious being just the most recent publicized incident. Now there is one exception and possibly others, but I will focus on the mental issue. I do agree that those who are mentally deficient should probably not have a gun. However, there is a major caveat to this, and it goes back to authority. The authorities would be the ones who are to determine whether or not somebody is mentally deficient. Now, this is what is concerning to me personally. Those who know me personally also know that I have attention deficit disorder in the worst way, not to mention I'm dyslexic. I do not believe for 1 second that that should preclude me from owning a gun, but was to say that the persons who claim to have authority over me won't declare that my ADD and or my dyslexia are mental deficiencies sufficient to prevent me from owning a firearm. This also goes to the idea of someone going to a psychiatrist because they were depressed when level and passed away sometime in the past and was on an antidepressant for a short amount of time, or any other number of scenarios. Yes, America does have a very high gun crime rate, and yes, America has many guns so freely available. However, banning guns is not the solution. Banning guns would have an effect opposite of what's been stated. It would have exactly the same effect that it has had time and time again when gun restrictions are enacted. In Australia, there has been a ban on guns since 1997. In the time between then and now, armed robberies are up 69%, assaults with guns are up 28%, gun murders are up 19%, and home invasions are up 21%. In Washington, D.C., gun laws have been in place for 30 years, and as the country's crime rate has dropped, D.C.'s crime rate has increased. And many other incidents where they've put gun restrictions in place. In Switzerland, though, there are guns in virtually every household, and they have one of the lowest crime rates in the world. Gee, I wonder why. I personally like the fact that nobody knows who is packing heat and who isn't. Criminals tend to have to think things through a bit more. Imagine if the criminals knew that no law-abiding citizen had a gun. What the hell do you think is going to happen in that scenario? Law-abiding citizens who follow any unconstitutional gun ban will be left with no recourse when confronted by one of these criminals except to wait for the authorities, and we know their track record on that. I don't see how people can't seem to grasp this one simple concept, if nothing else, about the whole debate. It's insane. There should be no debate. But there again, we go back to our old friend, the mainstream media, and it's feeding idiocy to the masses. Again, people, it's common sense. In fact, your mama told you the same thing mine did, I'm sure. Don't believe the TV. Well, don't. Just don't. Thomas Jefferson said, where the people fear government, you have tyranny. Where the government fears the people, you have liberty. Thank you again for listening, and remember, if you don't concern yourself with your own freedom and liberty, then there are those who will certainly and happily take it from you. This has been the Bonecast.